may choose to excuse yourself from the meeting. Other important notes. Your microphone and webcam are automatically disabled upon entering this meeting. The meeting will be open to questions and answers at the end of the formal presentation. Please take time to respond to our survey. Your feedback is important. So we will have a discussion period after the presentations today. This meeting's topic discussion is the ride's policy and procedure of passing a rider's destination without dropping them off, and dropping off a rider if they request a drop-off at the next safe location. When called upon, introduce yourself very briefly, and please try to keep your response limited to 2 to 3 minutes and focus on an example related to the discussion topic. So now we are ready for our RTAG co-chair update given by Nora Nagel.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Nora Nagel, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the RTAG Executive Committee. As most of you know, the Rider Transportation Access Group, also known as RTAG, is a community-based group that advises the MBTA on transportation matters affecting people with disabilities and older adults. Our goal is to ensure that all people with disabilities and older adults have every opportunity to be fully participating members of our community, noting and realizing that fundamental to that opportunity is the right and ability to use public transportation in an equal, effective, and dignified manner. In order to better address customer concerns, and that's my guide dog, he's saying hello. RTAG will now format the meetings a little differently and address 1 or 2 main discussion topics per meeting. We ask that members focus on these specific topics as much as possible, sharing during our discussion period. There will still be a comment period at the end of the meeting following the presentations by the MBTA, system-wide access, and the ride. RTAG meetings are going to alternate between focusing on matters pertaining to paratransit and fixed route service, so meaning buses, subways. So while this meeting focuses on the ride, the next general meeting will we'll have the main focus topic being related to fixed route. Tonight's meeting discussion will be on the ride's policies and procedures regarding passing a rider's destination without dropping them off. Some of you may recall that this was an issue discussed at a previous meeting. So if a rider's in close proximity to their own stop, but they're a couple of drop-offs away, people have requested to be dropped off early. And so the question is, what are the policies around dropping someone off? Some drivers say that they're unable to deviate from the predetermined route that they've been given, while other drivers will contact dispatch and request permission and complete the drop-off or drop off a rider upon request at the next safe location. The ride subcommittee, by the way, is looking for new additional members. The subcommittee focuses on paratransit concerns and meets every 2 weeks. The Office of Transportation Access, which oversees the ride, attends every other ride subcommittee meeting, meaning they're at 1 per every 4 weeks. Applications for the openings on the ride subcommittee will close on June 1st, and interviews will begin the following week, and new members will be announced in July. You can find the application for the ride subcommittee in the RTAG newsletter, and I'm sure we can put the link in the chat at some point. As a reminder, the Judge Patrick King meeting will be, sorry, let me start that again. As a reminder, the Honorable Judge Patrick King hosts his semi-annual settlement update meeting via Zoom on June 7th from 1 to 3 p.m. Judge King will report on the MBTA's progress towards compliance with the Daniels Feingold Settlement Agreement, which focuses on MBTA accessibility. The general manager of the MBTA and other MBTA officials will provide updates and answer questions about their ongoing accessibility initiatives. And I am going to mute my microphone because my dog's getting very loud.
Thank you, Nora. Next, we have an update from Laura Brailsford.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. I am Laura Brailsford from the Department of System-Wide Accessibility, and I'm pleased to be with you here tonight to share a few updates regarding various initiatives underway. Next slide. As some folks may remember, several months ago, interdepartmental working group within the MBTA, led by our customer technology department, launched a pilot to evaluate a newly created urine detection center to be deployed in a handful of our elevators within the core of our system. So this was motivated by a working group we established a couple years ago, focused solely on addressing the issue of elevator cleanliness. As a part of that working group, a number of improvements have been made, including a new preventative maintenance contract, additional inspections of our elevators by transit ambassadors, and evaluation of the effectiveness of the cleaning contract, and better interdepartmental coordination. One discussion that one recommendation that we were excited to advance was the notion of developing a sensor that could actually detect the presence of odor within our elevators and then send an alert to our maintenance teams that urine had been detected to get a quick response out there to have the issue addressed. So we worked with a research and development group out of California, and they developed a prototype that back in 2002 we did a demonstration, and actually one of the RTAG executive board members, Tom Gilbert, got to take part in that demo. And we were impressed enough by the sensor that we decided to deploy this at 4 elevators. And that pilot, the deployment of those sensors, lasted for about 4 months between October of last year and the very beginning of this year. So the goal of the pilot was pretty simple. It was to evaluate the overall reliability and effectiveness of the sensor and its ability to detect both urine as well as cleaning agents. And after reviewing a tremendous amount of data, we learned a lot, and the findings were pretty conclusive. Specifically, the sensor was just not able to accurately detect urine on a consistent basis. There was a high number of false reports that were sent out across all 4 elevators. And the sensor also periodically malfunctioned over the life of the pilot, and that only increased over the time. So we have concluded at this point that we're not ready to, the sensor is not sophisticated enough to consider deploying it beyond the pilot stage. We've actually recently removed the 4 sensors from their locations at Chinatown, Park Street, and Downtown Crossing. And we have shared all of these results with the research and development team. I want to assure everyone that this is not the end of the story when it comes to elevator cleanliness. We know that this is a persistent issue that our riders and our employees grapple with on a daily basis. So we will continue to work on identifying improvements to existing processes as well as new and innovative tools to helping us address the issue. And within the next week or so, there will actually be a dedicated web page that details a number of these findings, which we will send out to the RTAG distribution list. Right, next slide. And just to show you a couple of photos of the sensors, we've got photos of 4 of the 4 elevators that were used during the pilot. Chinatown, 922, 2 elevators at Downtown Crossing, 869 and 881, and then the infamous Park Street 808. You can see these sensors located up in the top corner of each of these units. For folks that ride the system regularly, I don't think it will come as a surprise why we selected these units. These are some of the units that are most frequently used, unfortunately, as restrooms by some riders, by some individuals. All right, next slide. All right, on to a very different topic. So one other issue that we have been challenged by for quite a while is the quality of our stop announcements on our red line subway vehicles. So when it comes to whether you're riding the bus or the subway or commuter rail, stop announcements are one of the most critical features we have on our vehicles. And on the red line is a big unique in that we currently have 3 different types of subway cars running on the line. And through our internal accessibility monitoring program, as well as lots of feedback from our riders, we flagged slightly before COVID the fact that the quality of announcements on the red line was lagging significantly behind our other subway lines, specifically the blue and orange line. So we System-wide accessibility began working very closely with red line transportation as well as vehicle maintenance to try to understand what was unique about the red line. Why are we seeing such a difference and such persistence with this issue? Our monitoring team, led by Glenda Campbell, started performing a greater degree of monitoring. Specifically, typically our monitors were monitoring 1 subway car in a train set at a time. We changed that to monitor every car in a train set to see if we could notice any trends between train sets. Through this additional data collection and our collaboration with vehicle maintenance, the team came back with some theories regarding what was going on, specifically involving the operability of the annunciator in certain circumstances. With that knowledge in hand, vehicle maintenance has actually developed a modified annunciator that they've begun deploying in select red line cars. And my team had a chance to go see that in the field, hear the announcements, and have confirmed that the announcement quality is significantly better. So vehicle maintenance is working on deploying these annunciators throughout the entire fleet of redline cars, and we expect this to make a noticeable difference over time. You can see on the screen some of our monitoring data suggests that just through the additional monitoring and the attention from vehicle maintenance, we are now headed in a positive direction. In Q4 of 2021, announcements on the red line were recorded to be very clear and easy to understand. Only 74.7% of the time. And most recently, at the beginning of this year, that number was up to 80%. So that's certainly not where we want to be. We know we have a lot of work to do, but we wanted to let everyone know that this work is underway and we are optimistic that that positive trend will continue into the future. Next slide. Great. And as Nora mentioned in her remarks, we wanted to encourage everyone to join us in a couple of weeks for our semi-annual public meeting on the status of the Daniels-Feingold settlement agreement hosted by Judge King, who is the independent monitor of the settlement agreement. This meeting will be notable in that our brand new general manager, Phil Ng, will be joining us and making some opening remarks. And I know he's looking forward to getting to hear feedback from many of you. In addition to that, we'll be giving a detailed update on the recent uptick in elevator outages, as well as a number of other initiatives underway. So if you are available, we would love to see you there. Again, that meeting is from 1 to 3 on June 7th, and there is a registration link in the chat. I should also mention we're actively working with the general manager to arrange a time for him to attend an upcoming RTAG public meeting. So if you're not able to join us on the 7th, I believe he will be joining us here at an RTAG meeting in the next month or two. And on the screen is a registration link for this meeting, along with a QR code for that same registration with a very cute little Tyrannosaurus Rex icon in the center. All right, next slide. All right, and as always, we just wanted to make sure everyone is aware that there's always more opportunities to hear about accessibility at the T and learn more. Our next RTAG meeting is scheduled for June 29th at 5:30. And as I mentioned, we'll be meeting to discuss the settlement on the 7th. Please, if you haven't recently, check out our page on Fixed Street Accessibility, which is simply mbta.com/accessibility. There is a ton of information on there. We also every 6 months put out a initiatives report on all of the initiatives happening system-wide. You can find that at mbta.com/SWA-initiatives. Although I should note, we will be updating that report in about 2 weeks. So check back in a couple of weeks for the latest details. And then finally, as you are out there writing the system, if you ever have a question or you run into an unsatisfactory experience or you have a commendation you want to share with us, we really do want to hear from you. And you can get in touch with us by calling the main customer support center at 617-222-3200 and 711 for relay. We're going to mbta.com and clicking on support. You can always tweet at us by tweeting at MBTA. And I believe that, oh, and just one last plug with another QR code. If you are interested in signing up for newsletters that our team in SWA puts out on a monthly basis, you can do so by going to mbta.com/SWA sign up, or by using this QR code. All right, and with that, I will turn it back over to Kat.
Thank you so much, Laura. So we're now at the period for questions and comments for system-wide accessibility. To indicate that you have a question, please use Zoom's raise hand feature located at the bottom of the screen. When you raise your hand, it alerts the moderator that you'd like to speak. The moderator will unmute attendees to ask questions in the order that they raise their hands. To speak, click reactions, then raise hand. If you're using your keyboard, you can type and click the Alt button and the Y letter. And if you're calling in, press *9 to raise your hand or *6 to unmute. All right, Tom Gilbert, you are first.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I have a question for you, Laura. Great presentation as always. I was asking. I was wondering in regards to the urine detection equipment. It sounded like it. I take it sounded like it flopped. It didn't do what it's supposed to do, I guess.
So yeah, I think that I think the results were pretty conclusive that the technology is just not there yet. It's not sophisticated enough to discern between the scent of urine versus all of the other smells that waft through our elevators. So definitely not ready for deployment at this point.
Is there any future of some of fact finding trips, like in the future, like no, not right now, but in the future, what they do in Singapore, what they do in other Asian countries to combat this issue? Because I remember you hear things like I think it's like maybe Singapore and maybe Tokyo, where the urine is detected, and then the elevator stops but defaults to the upper floor or the outer entrance, so people can get out if that does happen as a safety feature. So I was wondering if there's any fact-finding things that are going on that we can find out what they're doing there that we can apply here.
Yeah, Tom, that's a great question. We were just talking about this about a month ago with
Okay.
with our colleagues in consumer technology. So they did do some research into the technology or the approach Singapore uses, and this is actually a solution that's been deployed there for a number of years. I was surprised. I'm going to say between 10 and 15, 20 years they've been using a solution that I believe really is focused on ultimately detecting moisture, which again is something that we would want to be really careful about, because there's legitimate moisture in our elevators all of the time. There's not a lot of information publicly available beyond that about their solution, though. So we did talk about the desire to find out more. I think for those that aren't familiar with what Tom's mentioning, one thing that's very noteworthy about the Singapore approach is that as soon as the sensor is activated, the individual is locked in the elevator until the authorities arrive. So they have a very, very strict approach to combating abuse in elevators. But yeah, Tom, I think we do have a little more homework to do on actually the technology, although I believe what we know to date, it's not something we would ultimately pursue, because it's not not just flagging urine, but definitely more homework to do on that.
Because I think probably one of the other barriers is going to be work is that the ACLU is not going to give us a break on this, because it's fine for them to say that doing things like that are okay in elevators, but not okay when it comes to individuals like you and I that have to use these elevators and have no other choice but to use it. And I think you and
Yeah.
Glenda know,
The
about
other
what's
thing
going
we've
on.
been talking a lot about, and I think there's going to be, a number of conversations that we're going to be having with different cities and towns that we serve, is, that ultimately a lot of this is, a health and human services issue where folks either don't have access to restrooms nearby, or are dealing with substance abuse issues, or are not housed. So there's lots of very serious, daunting societal issues that really feed into this. One thing I think we are really recognizing is that it's not just about our maintenance contract or our sensor technology, that we've got to figure out ways to partner with our municipal partners to try and address some of those more significant challenges. So definitely a lot more to come here. Unfortunately, no easy answers at the moment, though.
Because I'm all for having bathrooms in MBTA stations for people to use. Of course, if you have to, if anybody needs to use them, they need to use them, which is fine. But then what do we do when somebody locks themselves in there and shoots up? That's the question. So is it fair to the rest of us? I don't think it. It really.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I said. I think a lot of this really stems from much bigger issues that we've got to, as a community, as a society, figure out how to address. Likely, being punitive is not the answer in most of these situations. So how do we partner with local human services agencies or folks doing work on homelessness or substance abuse to think about this a little differently?
Okay, thanks for answering my questions. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom and Laura. Lisa, you're next. Do you still have a
Sorry
question?
about that. I was having a problem with my unmute button.
No worries.
I have a question. Lately I've noticed this has happened like probably 6 times in the last 3 weeks, where I get a time that they tell me on the telephone for my pickup. And then the day of my pickup, the ride isn't there. And when I call in, they say, oh no, your time is now like today it was supposed to be 2 o'clock. And then it went to like.
Hey, Lisa. So we're actually in the comment period for system-wide accessibility, which focuses on the fixed route services. So as soon as we get through the ride presentation, then you can go ahead and ask your question.
Well, can I ask another question that is actually a fixed route issue?
Of
So
course.
the subway, I live near a subway station that doesn't seem to be manned all the time. And so it's kind of hard to get somebody to have somebody at the other end to get you off the train.
Lisa, do you mind if I ask what station that is?
Roxbury Crossing.
Okay, great. The reason I ask is we are actually in the midst of a really, really exciting development at the T, in that just this past spring, our board of directors approved a new contract for our transit ambassador program. These are the staff that are deployed at a number of our locations, and their job is solely to provide customer assistance to anyone, but particularly to people with disabilities who might need assistance on either end of their trip. And with that new contract, we were able to secure additional funding to scale up coverage pretty significantly. So by the end of July, we anticipate that folks will notice many more transit ambassadors in the network. There will not be a transit ambassador at every station during every hour of revenue service. But at our highest ridership stations, there will most likely be somebody there between 6 a.m. and midnight. And then at a subset of our lower ridership stations, there'll be partial coverage throughout the week. So I can follow up with you after to share some details on what we're planning for Roxbury Crossing. But this is something we are extremely excited about, that we've collectively been advocating for a while. The ambassador program is in the process of hiring new staff as we speak. They're undergoing a newly refreshed training that actually RTAG provided feedback on as well. So again, I think by the end of the summer, you'll see less gaps in coverage. But what I would say to everyone here, at any point, if you are not able to find an ambassador to provide assistance, please keep in mind there are a couple other ways that you can get assistance. You can always ask a motor person who is driving one of our subway trains. They are also required to assist you on and off the vehicle if no one else is available. If you're not able to get down to the end of the platform to interact with them, you can also use one of our call boxes anywhere in the station that will connect you to one of our hub centers, and they will dispatch somebody to you to assist. And there's a lot of very clear and serious rules about how that works. So if you run into an instance where you try that and you're not getting the help you need, please let us know.
Great, because that's part of the reason why I'm taking the ride, is because I can never find a person in the station. And living across the street from a train station, I should be able to actually use the station.
Yes. Yeah, and we fully recognize that for many of us, having a human being there that's ready to assist us needed is often the thing that makes us feel comfortable or able to use the system. We definitely understand how important that is. So again, by the end of the summer, I think you will see additional staff, but there will not be 100% coverage at 100% of locations. When you can't find somebody, give the call box a shot. If you don't get good results from that, please let us know and we can talk more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Laura. Jennifer Smith Workman, you're next.
Let me unmute. Hi, everyone. I do take the MBTA train. I mean, the buses, not so much the train. So I'm not at stations as frequent as I used to be. But my question is it any way that we can make announcements? Because I know for the vision, for us who can see, we can see that there are markings, that there are videotapes being recorded along the walls of the station. Is there any way that there could be a vocal thing that comes out which would alert people that, oh yeah, we are watching you, you are being monitored, or something to that phrase, and when a person enters the station, I'm just wondering if that is possible. This station is being recorded.
So Jennifer, is the motivation that sort of from a security point of view, you want people to be aware that
Yeah.
even if there's not somebody there, that there are security cameras and they should behave appropriately.
Sure.
Exactly.
In this world, though.
So yeah, a couple things here. So folks are aware that the screens that you see on some of our platforms, the digital screens that show what's happening on a platform, those are actually not for security purposes. Those are for the motor persons, so that when they look out the train door, they can verify that nobody is standing in an open door before they close the door. So it allows them to see different parts of the platform more accurately. So those particular screens are not for security. However, the vast majority of our subway network is covered by security cameras. So if there is an incident on a platform, we are often able to go back and access that security footage. And our hub centers, which I mentioned a second ago, are able to plug into those cameras at any point. So this is not something that we, to your point, there are not audible or visual announcements reminding people that they are on camera. That's certainly a recommendation we can pass on to our security team and our transit police department. But yeah, we do not do that today, but that is a recommendation that I can pass forward and see what their thoughts are.
Yes, excellent. Because people tend to think more when they hear instead of reading. Oh, I'm just reading that, whatever. But when they hear it, it's like, oh snap, they can hear, they can see me. They think if they know that they're being watched, they'll think more about pulling that little pecker out and pissing all over the place or whatever. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking that audibles would be more sufficient for people to know that they're being monitored, so to say.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Sorry, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Laura? Tom, go for it.
Am I muted?
You're good.
Yeah, I want to say that I thought that was a great question that Jennifer just asked. I think that would be one of the deterrents in regards to bad behavior on the T. I think that would be a great thing to institute, because if they say on the audio and also have some signs in the station at the same time saying that, I think that would be one of the good deterrents, to say that you're being videoed. If you're going to be nasty and do things that you're not supposed to be doing on the platform, that they'll be recording you. And I think that's a great thing. I also wanted to ask Laura. I was wondering if someone could get back to the customer technologies team in regards to the announcements when it says red line train to Ashmont or red line train to Braintree is now boarding. A lot of those announcements are not accurate. They're saying that. In fact, I think I was talking to Glenda and she's noticed it too, that it'll say it and the train will be gone, or it'll say it, the train will be coming. It's really kind of misleading, especially to people with individuals with visual impairments, because the most accurate system we rely on is when we hear the Frank Oglesby's voice, when it says the next train to Ashmont is now approaching. The next train to Ashmont is now arriving. That seems to be the most accurate one there. And so we know it's going to arrive. And the way we know that's in the station anyway are the air compressors and the sound of the train, plus the locators that are on the newer trains that we would go by. And I think that'd just be a better way of just removing that now boarding announcement and just sticking with the arrival, the approaching and arrival announcements instead, to say that it's actually coming and to be aware of it, and when it's actually arriving into the station. So by the time it arrives into the station, we roughly know it's in the station anyway. So I think it's kind of silly for it to say that when it's not when it's not even accurate all the time. And I noticed a lot that happens on the Green Line too. Like it'll say like next train to VA Medical Center is boarding, but it's still arriving. It's still moving. It's not boarding, or it's already leaving. You know, it's the same kind of similar thing on the Green Line. So I was just wondering if technologies could be let known that I don't think that's really necessary. I think it's just necessary to have the Frank Oglesby announcement, which I think are the most accurate ones that were put on years ago.
All right, Tom, thank you for that. Yeah, I definitely share that feedback with them. Let me just quickly check if anybody from my team, Robert,
Yes.
Linda, do you have any additional details on that specific change that was made to the announcements? Otherwise, we will just share that feedback with our colleagues and get some thoughts back to you.
First off, Tom, can you tell me again which stations you're finding this issue?
It's in a lot of, I think it's a global issue. It's in a lot of the stations. That does it at Porter, does it at Davis. When I'm at Park Street on the Green Line, it'll do it. It's just not an accurate system. It's just silly. It just doesn't make sense. I wish it just wouldn't say it and just give the in Frank Oglesby's voice when it says when it's approaching, when it's arriving, and that's all we need. And then,
Okay.
of course, when we're on the trains, you know, that next stop departing that they have on the Orange Line now is nice. That gives the door announcements and the departing announcement as well as the arriving as well. So that system there works well, but it's the now boarding thing that I think is kind of a farce, because it's not really, it isn't really helpful. It really isn't. It's misleading.
Because I believe it was last year, the late in 2021, CTD was working on a glitch that was causing this issue at some stations.
Yeah,
where it wasn't in sync with the train approach and arrival. So I can follow up with them and note a couple of the stations that you listed there.
It was probably most likely the Frank Oglesby portion of it when it says now approaching, now arriving, which is fine. But I'm talking about the one where we hear the robot voice and it says that the next train to Ashmont is now boarding, and then it's not in the station, or it's leaving the station, or it's still coming into the station. That's the part that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think it's all part of the same system, but I will still let them know, the person that gave me this information about this this glitch in the first place, and let her know.
And
But if you find this at other stations though, besides the 3 you named, I know you said it's global, but they were looking at, it wasn't global at the time. They were focusing on specific stations. Just please let us know.
Okay, and one quick question. I was also wondering if there could be some more improvements on the bus arrival information. If it could say it more often. It's only saying it every 6 minutes, and you have to like wait, and there's nobody around. And you have to ask people for the phone or when the next buses arrive. If they could have it like every 3 minutes instead of every 6 minutes, it'd be a lot more helpful.
Got it.
So thanks. Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
That's it.
Thanks, Rob.
Esther, do you have a question?
Oh, that's good.
You are still muted, Esther.
There we go. Yes, I have a question, and it's something that Laura, I email her about constantly, and that is the lighting, not only in the subway stations, but at the commuter rail stations. Having been declared legally blind, it is very, very hard getting through these stations when the lighting is horrible. Rob knows that I exulted when I got off at Park Street under and above and saw that the lighting had finally been changed. It would be nice if it were like that at all of the train stations. I know if I come into Boston, and I know that a lot of the times the commuter rail trains are outside, there's a certain part of that platform that if all the trains are in, you cannot see on that platform. I know I can't. And there's lighting on half of the platform going into the TD Garden. And then once I get into the garden, the lighting is even worse because it's basically pitch black in there. I don't know how anybody can see. It is, now I know it's dark if a person that has 20/20 vision tells me it's too dark in the station and they can't see. So I know it's not just me. I would like to know what you all are going to do about changing or upgrading the lighting on the commuter rail and in all of the subway stations.
Yes, Esther, you are absolutely right. I know you have been really excellent about raising this issue and following up with me on it. So, first, let me say, I think collectively we recognize how important lighting is for all our readers, but particularly through the lens of accessibility and those writers who are blind or have low vision. So I know we have had a couple of conversations with our maintenance teams as well as our engineering departments. To be perfectly candid with you, we don't have a specific game plan for these particular locations yet. That's something that they are still working on. Believe it or not, the lighting project that you were excited to see come to fruition at Park Street was part of a multi-million-dollar station lighting and brightening project. Something as basic as lighting actually can end up being an extremely complex and costly endeavor. That's not like an excuse, but it is an explanation for why some of these things take longer than it feels like they should. So I have work to continue doing with our engineering and maintenance teams to see what we can do at these specific locations. We also have to work with our commuter rail operator, Keolis, and even the garden to find out what we're able to do at that location. So I give you my word that we will continue to work on this and follow up with you on it. But please don't stop reaching out. Whenever you want to check in, I do appreciate that.
It's not just the garden, but it's also at Back Bay Station.
Yeah, I know Back Bay was on your
And another station I forgot to put on that list was Forest Hills. That commuter rail platform is dark as well. I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad the lighting is better at Park Street because I have fallen into the Green Line trolley tracks a few times in my chair and it's not been fun. So having better lighting in those stations is great. There have been a few times where I've almost gone off the platform at North Station on the commuter rail, and thank goodness there had been someone there to help out. But a lot of times nobody helps or wants to do anything because it's not their job or it's not in their job description. Another thing I'd like to talk about is those bridge plates, because some of them are either too steep or too flimsy. I know I have broken a few of them, so I'm speaking from experience. I have broken at least 6, and I don't think that's too good. There have been some and some of us in with the wheelchairs, we cannot get through those doors. Now, I know with me, if I come in and out of Boston or in and out of Lowell, if there's not a double-decker car on that train, most of the time my chair is getting beat up, and so are the door frames in your trains. There was one train I got in that there were 2 doors on the inside that opened up. It would be nice if all of your doors frames were like that, or inside the train. And when they were also talking about the announcements. A lot of the time on the Lowell line, the conductors are making the announcement. I mean, those that are walking through the train, picking up the fares, they're the ones making the collections because the automated system is not working. And that happens a lot. So I'd like to know what are you all going to do about that? But definitely, I mean, not every wheelchair is a small chair like the one Rob uses or the one you might use, but there are double wides like mine that need to be able to fit in a train and fit in it comfortably without having without getting beat up all the time. And like I said, most of the time, the double-decker trains are the ones I can get through with no problem.
Sure, and there's actually a very good reason for that experience. And that is there is a fleet of commuter rail coaches, so specifically our oldest coaches. Those are the cars that are completely flat and are, once you're inside, are fairly spacious. They do not meet the ADA minimum codes for the door widths in that vestibule area. Because of that, there is a rule within Keyless and railroad operations that every train set must have a fully compliant car. That may be one of our double deckers, or it may be a slightly newer version of one of the previous fleets. But there are a number of cars out there today that the door widths are simply not compliant. And I am guessing that those are very much the ones you are struggling with. It is a red flag to me that you would be boarded on such a car, because again, the requirement is that we have at least one compliant car on the train set, and that anyone needing that level of accessibility would be boarded at that vehicle. So I know I don't like asking anyone to do this, Esther, but I would ask if you run into that situation again where you're directed to a car that is too narrow for you in terms of the vestibule, if you would reach out to me or reach out to our contact numbers. That is something right away we can take to Keyless and railroad ops and investigate. That should not be happening. And regardless, we will share this information with them. They do track the percentage of train sets that go out with compliant cars, and the numbers are pretty good, quite good. So I am not pleased to hear that that's been your experience.
And I'm not the only one on the Lowell line. There are a few of us that do have to come into Boston occasionally. And sometimes they can get on and sometimes they can't. And like I said, most of the time we can all get on very comfortably if there's a double decker on the Lowell line. And I think once, let me see, I think one month I came into Boston and there was not a double decker on that train at all. None of the cars were double deckers. And that was the one car that I got on, that once I got on the train, the inside doors were double doors. And I could get in and out of that comfortably, but trying to get on and off the train, like I said, was kind of hard. And like I said, some of those bridge plates that they use are either way too thick or just way too thin.
Yeah.
And it's not, the thin ones, you kind of hear like they sound like they're going to snap if you just get on it. And I don't feel safe with that. And when that does happen, a lot of the times the conductors will help me on the train while I'm in my chair. But I think those, if we could get commuter rail bridge plates as strong as you have for the subway and not as steep, that would be beautiful. But who knows? I mean, it's just me voicing my opinion.
No, and Esther, yes, I mean, I think we could talk about this for hours, and I'd be happy to at some point. Let me just quickly say that, it's going back to the vehicles. One thing that I do want everyone to be aware about, and we're going to talk a little bit about this at the settlement meeting on the 7th. Vehicle engineering, our vehicle team is about ready to introduce a new set of double-decker commuter rail cars to the system. So that will introduce an even higher level of compliant coaches to our system, which is obviously a really good thing and addresses a number of the concerns you're raising here. With respect to bridge plates, you are definitely not the only one who has experienced some challenges. This is something my team and I talk a lot about. And last year, we began working with our chief engineer's office to look at basically putting out a project to identify, can we develop a universal bridge plate that would work on all of our commuter rail coaches at all commuter rail platforms? Because as I'm sure you know, many are unique in terms of the gaps and in terms of the widths. So this is something that we have not yet started, but it is absolutely on our list because we agree. One, we actually have about 10 different types of bridge plates on the commuter rail network. That is confusing for staff and for riders. And then, as you're pointing out, some of them are challenging to use. So we know we need to figure out a different solution, and we're hoping to get that started in the next fiscal year.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Esther. If any other riders have similar experiences to what Esther shared, feel free to reach out to me directly. I can drop my contact information in the chat. Tom, unfortunately, just due to time purposes, I'm going to ask you to follow up with me personally so we can move on to the ride presentation. Perfect. Next slide, please. Michelle, it is your turn to do the ride updates.
Okay, thank you. Michelle Styler, Chief of Paratransit with the Ride. I actually am going to start with the normal statistics that we present, and then I will roll into some of what we discussed with respect to customers and inefficient scheduling. For the month of April, we saw a drop in ridership. It was down about 9% from March. It declined by 8,100 and change trips. Go to the next slide. On-time performance for April was 88%, which is down slightly from March. And pickups greater than 120 trips increased from March to April. We are onboarding 2 additional providers, Userve and Curb, and you will begin seeing reminders about that service, and we expect that will help us address the ongoing driver shortage difficulties that our providers are experiencing. Next slide, please. Our average ASA, or average speed of answer, declined in April. Again, this was a challenging month because of the difficulty with drivers. We do have a number of efforts underway to address this. We have made some telephony upgrades. Again, something I will speak to. We are updating real-time ETAs, and we're increasing staffing. If we go to the next slide, please. Here, just a second. Complaints. So we did see 280 complaints for the month of April, 29 commendations, and 238 inquiries. Next slide, please. I wanted to speak to the RFP that we're working on regarding the transportation management software. And some of this is a refresher that we've built out a diverse technical evaluation committee that consists of voting and advisory members. We do have a member of RTAG that's participating. We have begun the first of two phases of testing. As a matter of fact, that began today. This will be awarded based on a best value assessment. And the implementation will be adjusted based on the contract award. As that's pushed out, the implementation will be pushed out as well. Next slide, please. I wanted to speak to the self-service texting option that will shortly be available to our customers. RTAG members have assisted us with this testing, as RIDE staff has participated as well. Customers will be able to text in to get updated vehicle arrival times, see a list of upcoming rides, check their balance, and cancel their trips. And rollout will come soon. We expect it to be in June. Next slide, please. I spoke about this briefly earlier. I wanted to provide an update. RIDE service providers. We are introducing additional service providers. They will provide ADA level service and meet all of the ADA requirements. They will be part of our dedicated service providers. However, they will not be providing on-demand trips. The vehicles will be identified with a large RIDE decal or magnet, and drivers will wear vests and have ID cards. And user began in May in a very limited rollout, and you're going to begin seeing these vehicles out there as part of your service. Next slide, please. This is an update on RIDE staffing. For fiscal year 23, which ends in June, we have 19 approved positions. 5 positions are vacant. 3 positions are being worked on right now. The senior customer liaison has closed and interviews will begin. We have the deputy director of operations and the technical project manager will post late May and early June. In fiscal year 24, which begins in July, we will see a significant increase to our staffing. Next slide, please. I also wanted to speak to RIDE provider staffing. You often hear me speak to challenges with the driver shortage and how that's impacting our service. All of our providers participated in the HR on the Go events hosted by the MBTA. I was at 2 of the 4 events, and we saw a huge turnout, and we were really pleased. Additionally, RTAG, I want to note, collaborated with the MBTA to host their own hiring event last week at Wellesley Station, which is in walking distance to their offices. Next slide, please. So additional updates, one would be the mask policy. We had shared with the subcommittee and the general committee that there will be changes. Effective May 11th, Massachusetts state of emergency ended. RIDE no longer requires masks, but we do continue to encourage use by our employees and by our customers. I spoke to the curb mobilization. We have user that you're beginning to see, and you will expect to see some curb vehicles as well in June. And worth noting is the mobility center. We're exploring lease opportunities for the mobility center that will allow us to expand the space and provide an opportunity for our staff and our customers to be trained and interviewed in more expansive space. Thank you, Chris. One other thing worth mentioning regarding the mask policy is that the ride expanded vehicle disinfection at the onset of COVID, and the mobility center has air purifiers in every office and on site in the common areas. Now this looks to be the end of our slides. What I'm going to do is bring up some talking points from the subcommittee meeting where we discussed the issue that we're looking to speak to tonight. And that's inefficient scheduling. Okay. So I just want to start with explaining, and everybody here likely already knows this, but that paratransit service it is different from fixed route service. And that's what often makes it difficult to deliver that on-time performance that we strive for and that excellent customer experience. It's reservation-based, the routes and schedules change daily, and it's door-to-door service. We've been asked about an alternate location drop-off by customers and what our policy is. Our policy is that ride drivers may not deviate from a manifest without seeking approval from dispatch. No trip modifications can be made without dispatch approval. Dispatchers will review and document a customer request to address their drop-off. And I just want to explain that some of the considerations that a dispatcher will evaluate would include the safety for customer and the driver about where to drop off. Potentially the customer's needs as well. They may have health conditions where they should be dropped off in an unfamiliar place. Scheduled trips and routes, dispatchers will look at who else is on board the vehicle, what trip will follow, what customer will follow, and what the schedule looks like. And then there's also a consideration for travel time for all passengers. I will acknowledge that we are not perfect here, and a lot of this requires manual intervention. And I do know that there are inefficient trips that occur, and we have heard from those customers. We work to, as they're identified, to review the situation and make adjustments as necessary. And I really think at this point, if you have additional questions, we could open to questions.
Thank you, Michelle. So we are going to have 15 minutes for questions and comments for the ride, and then we will move on to our discussion topic for tonight. Again, to indicate that you have a question, please use Zoom's raise hand feature located at the bottom of the screen. When you raise your hand, it alerts the moderator that you'd like to speak. The moderator will unmute attendees to ask questions in the order that they raise their hands. To speak, click reactions, then raise hand. You can also click the Alt button with the Y letter. And if you're calling in, press *9 to raise your hand or *6 to unmute. Melissa, go ahead, you're first.
Good evening. Michelle, what is your actual position at the RIDE or the MBTA?
I'm the Chief of Paratransit Services.
Excellent. So that means you get a lot of communication with the people in the head of the MBTA. I would like to know why I get told that I cannot get picked up from the ride or make scheduled rides but my neighbor who lives directly in the same community, like driveway, can get picked up because we live behind an invisible border.
Melissa, I would be happy to take a look at that for you.
Mhm.
The guideline is within 3/4 of fixed route service. So it's possible, and I don't have all that information in front of me, that you sit outside of the service area.
She does too,
We can take a look at that.
because this has been going on since December.
We can take a look at that. If you want to share your information with Kat, we can take a look at your situation.
Please, because I've been waiting to get picked up. She gets picked up every day. And I can't get a ride.
So you're deemed an eligible customer. You went through the certification process.
I've been using the ride for years. I just moved here in December. And all of a sudden, I can't use the ride because I live behind an invisible border. She lives in the same place I do. The same exact place I do. The only way she cannot be doing this is if she uses a different zip code.
I can't speak directly to that because I don't know your neighbor and I don't know your address, but if you give that information to Kat, we can bring it back and look at it.
Oh, most definitely. Because I'm tired of everybody telling me, oh, no, we can't. And then I get a letter from somebody who wants to hide behind people. Oh, it was done in error. No, this was not done in error. Most definitely was not done in error. It was not done in error because before I moved here, I saw the ride coming in and out of this driveway before I moved here, all last year and earlier before that. So her getting trips was not done in error. She had been getting trips before I moved here in December. So if a supervisor from the ride is not going to get out of their office and take a trip down 138 and come and see where we live, don't tell me it was done in error. That was not done in error. If you don't come visualize and see, you can't tell me it was done in error. You're just not coming to see what's going on, and you can't do the Google map. You have to come see in person.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll drop my contact information in again, and we'll be able to continue this conversation offline.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. We will take a look at your information.
Lisa, you're next.
So it's sort of, I have a two-part commentary. One is lately I'll have a time that the telephone will leave me a message, say, okay, your pickup is 10:15. And then when I call to see where my ride is, my time is changed to like 20 minutes or a half hour later. And then they're still even late for that. And I'm just trying to figure out how can my time change when I've never been informed that it changed, but it's been happening pretty frequently. Like today I had a 3-way trip and 2 of the times were changed and we didn't hit the target for either of them at all. And it's making me very late for my appointments.
Is this a recent occurrence?
It's been happening for the last like month and a half, 2 months.
Okay.
But it'll be like changed to anywhere from 15 minutes to a half hour. And
so
then, like,
I'm sorry.
I'm not getting picked up for like 45 minutes after the time I was told.
What I can speak to and what I was talking about earlier is the challenges with drivers and the delays that you're seeing are a direct result of a driver shortage. And what happens, and I spoke to it at the subcommittee meeting, but not necessarily here, is when we build those schedules the evening before, they're ideal and they're the most efficient schedules that we can build. The next morning, there are a number of things that may occur that impact service. And again, I know that the majority of you already know this, but when we speak to driver call-outs, FMLA usage, no-shows, or even late cancellations, what ends up happening is the delays accrue and are exacerbated. And as the day progresses, some of those trips get pushed back. But if you'd like to share your information with Kat as well, we can take a look at your trips and just ensure that everything is operating as intended, because it sounds like there might be a little problem there.
Yeah, because I mean, I literally live down the street from the Brigham.
Mhm.
And I'll see 4 vans go past me and mine still hasn't shown up. That's going to the Brigham and they're empty. So it's a little crazy because I'm like, they're going right by me, waving at me sometimes. But then like, I'm late for my appointment because I couldn't get picked up by anybody. So
Yeah,
that's
I
sort
do
of a little weird.
I was going to say, I do understand your frustration, and we are frustrated too, and we're doing everything in our power to improve the service, to onboard additional drivers, to introduce technology. We're hopeful that you'll start seeing a difference as we onboard Userve and Curb. So we do have a lot of efforts underway, but if you could share that information, we'd like to take a look at it.
Sure. And the other part is it's a vehicle problem with the lifts. I do have an HC chair. I can get on most vehicles, but lately it seems like the 2900s, 28 and 2900s, about half of them, the lift won't go all the way up to the top. And then the drivers will say, yeah, I've been having a problem with my lift and they said it was fixed.
Now that's interesting, and I'd like to bring that back to our operations team, because that's not something that has been brought to my attention. And can I ask if you've submitted a complaint?
I did before, and then I just stopped complaining because nothing different was happening. And I didn't even get a response to my complaint.
Well, thank you for that. I would encourage you, I can do that. We do look at all complaints. And again, if you share your information, I'd really like to take a look at what you've experienced, bring that to our providers, and see if they've reported any issues of the lift, because that hasn't made it to me and that hasn't made it to our operations team. And perhaps there's an opportunity to take a look at the drivers that you've worked with that experienced an issue with the lift. And maybe there's an opportunity for training or refresher training. So I really would like to be able to pull that information and take a look at it. And if you have a specific date or incident, what was that?
It was today, like, and the driver said, oh, I've been having a problem with the vehicle, with the lift.
Lisa, I'm going to have you reach out to me just so we can move on. I
Okay,
put my
no problem.
contact information in the chat, but I appreciate you sharing your stories. They're powerful.
And Kat and I will circle up and make sure that we capture all of your information and the issue, and that we're able to follow up.
Michelle, will you just have one of your staff members answer Trebora's question in the chat? That would be really great.
Okay.
Jennifer and Esther, I'm going to have you two be the last questions and comments for this session before we move on to the discussion topic. So if you could please keep your stories to about 2 minutes, that would be great. Jennifer, go ahead.
Okay, hi. I'm not sure, let me articulate this right. I'm not sure if this discussion right now is going to pertain to the Lyft drivers and rides, or is that part of the other topic? But my issue is, lately, when I request a lift, it seems like I'm getting canceled like 3 or 4 times. Just yesterday, it took me literally 39 minutes just to get a driver to come to my house to take me from here to Malden. And I understand traffic, but it just seems, if they have no drivers, there's some way that they should not even pick my request up to have it canceled. Am I the only one experiencing this? And it's not just going to the North Shore, it's going to the South Shore as well. These drivers are complaining that they don't get paid enough to go from Dorchester to Malden, from Dorchester to Weymouth. They just want to do local trips, which entails makes me late because I'm thinking, oh yeah, because sometimes they'll show up. I request it, they'll show up in 3 minutes. Sometimes it takes 15 minutes.
Is this
It's just-
Jennifer?
Yes, it's driving me nuts.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that the Lyft experience is based on the availability of drivers and the drivers that are in the area. I'm a frequent Uber and Lyft user as well, and have had the same experiences. And I think that they tend to be more available in the urban areas where they can pick up a lot of trips. If there's a specific concern, is it just a delay in getting your Lyft trip?
It's a delay. Yes, it's just the frequency of cancellation when they pick it up. So that you get a driver, I put in there automatically, I'm going to Malden or I'm going to Weymouth. That way they know how far I'm going. That way they can not take the trip or just cancel it. Sometimes I do it. Sometimes it's crazy because it gets down to 3 minutes. They're arriving in 3 minutes and then cancel. So now I have to put in there as soon as I get a driver where I'm going, so they can either cancel it right on a spot or not. It's just driving me bananas. I have a whole screen full. My phone is full of snapshots of drivers canceling, drivers canceling.
That again, it depends on supply and demand. That we aren't Lyft, but what I shared with you, which is really, it depends on the drivers that are available, the drivers that are in the area. But I really can't control the availability of Lyft drivers.
Yeah, Jennifer, we can continue. I just want to be able to move on to our discussion topic. So how about you reach out to me individually and we'll be able to continue the conversation.
Okay, super duper. I sure will. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Rhoda, I'm going to have Esther be the last person to ask a question in this section before we move on to our discussion topic. Go ahead, Esther.
I'll put it in the chat.
Sounds good. Thanks, Rhoda.
Okay, before I move back to Lowell, and my sister can testify to this because she's been my PCA at some point when I've been on the ride. We have had drivers that have been extremely rude. I would like to know what type of training they go through, because some of them need classes or lessons in manners, common decency, and common sense, and how to talk to passengers. If you don't want the job, don't sign up for it. I was in customer service for over 25 years, and I was always told the customer is always right. There is no need for a driver to be rude to a passenger in any shape, form, or fashion. And I have put in complaints about it. And I'd like to know what has been done or is being done so that no one has to be treated rude by ride drivers again.
All right, thank you, Esther. First of all, I'm sorry for your experience, and no, rude behavior is unacceptable anywhere with the ride and in paratransit, and that includes reservationists. They do undergo extensive training, and that does include sensitivity training. I can also tell you that we're taking a deeper look at the training, and we have one of the operations managers on our team that's sitting through the training. We have several other staff members that will be sitting through the driver training. As well, to understand what training is being provided to those drivers. In addition to that, we're looking to identify opportunities for refresher training. One of the things that we're looking at is trending the customer complaints, bringing them back to our providers and asking them how they propose to address them. But we're looking to take action when we hear about these things. Again, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thanks, Esther. Thanks, Michelle. All right, we're gonna move on to the next slide. So yep, thank you for attending tonight's meeting. And our next slide is going to be our discussion period. So we'll now move on to our discussion period. This meeting's topic discussion, again, is the rides policy and procedure of passing a rider's destination without dropping them off, and dropping off a rider if they request a drop off at the next safe location. I know Michelle spoke a little bit about this earlier, but if you have any stories related specifically to this topic, please share and raise your hand when called upon. Introduce yourself very briefly. Please try to keep your response limited to 2 to 3 minutes and focus on an example related to this specific topic. Does anybody have any stories to share? Feel free to raise your hand. And we can also unshare the slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, Jennifer.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yes. On Sundays, I live on Warren Street, off of Warren Street. There's a person that lives 2 streets over from me, and there's a person that lives a street to the right from her. One Sunday, I'm not sure, the driver says he had to drop off the person that lived all the way at the top of Elm Hill, close to Seaver first, which means you're passing my street, then to come back around and drop off another person on Elm Hill Parkway, and then drop me off. Now, we did say to the driver, we mentioned it to the driver, we all says, is it possible that you can, they all agreed, is it possible that they had it going? And everybody agreed it would make sense for them to drop me off first, and then Elm Hill Park, and then Elm Hill. Now, could that kind of training, that kind of scenario be placed into the trainings? Because it only.
I'm sorry, Jennifer is cutting out a little bit. I don't know if that's happening for others.
Oh, I'm sorry, my phone rang. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I am so sorry. I forgot to put on Do Not Disturb. Actually, I got a trip for tomorrow. They just called. There's in my area, coming from the bingo on Sunday, coming up on the street. My street is first. To the 2 streets over, there's another person. And to the right, there's another person up at the top of that street. The driver said that it was the person at the top of Elm Hill, which means coming off of the expressway, he's coming up Warren Street, passing my street to drop that person off, to backtrack to drop another person off and then drop me off. As that just doesn't make sense. So the group of us, we all asked if it was possible to drop me off first, you know, and everybody agreed on it. Drop me off first, drop off Elm Hill Parkway first, second, and then drop off Elm Hill last, and then continue on to Mattapan. Everybody agreed on that rotation of drop-offs. But is there any way that some scenario like that can be placed with the training? So the drivers don't have to go crazy and calling dispatch, which will, by the time dispatch answers, we'd be all the way to Mattapan and Timbuktu.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right now, the drivers are not empowered to make that decision on their own because of other considerations that the dispatcher, additional information, and macro level information that the dispatcher would have access to that a driver wouldn't, which would include what I had said earlier is the trips that are following, unique situations by the customers or health conditions. There are a lot of other considerations. But that being said, I am fully aware that there, and I would call it inefficient trips. And some of that is manual intervention when we have difficulty covering trips with drivers, that they're cobbled together inefficiently. It doesn't mean that they're right. And again, I know that we can do better, and there is absolutely no reason that we can't take a deep look at this and offer refresher training to both dispatch and drivers. I can tell you that something we've done over the last maybe 6 months is that we have meetings with the drivers and with operations and the dispatchers to ensure that they're communicating most effectively and that they can share concerns and issues that they may have and work through them. So I think that we're in a better position now. I can also tell you that we are evaluating scheduling software that could potentially address some of these issues. But the main issue here right now is the driver shortage. And that's what's impacting these trips and causing these inefficiencies.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Next up is a caller with a 617 number.
Hi, that may be me. My name's Mary Mahim McCauley, just calling as a personal rider. And first of all, I just want to give a plug to most of the ride drivers. In my experience using the ride since 2006, I'd say the vast majority have been really professional and polite. And so I've had a lot of wonderful experiences. I think you do have some great drivers. Secondly, I just wanted to say that I had brought up at the last meeting the fact that of going by my home and going several miles out of the way and coming back, as the last woman spoke about. And I had asked a few different times, and it was agreeable to the person that was in the ride with me that I could get off first. I'm not an individual that has the MABE, met at both ends, on my profile or anything. I believe it would have been a safe drop-off, but I do understand that the driver can't make the decision. I do understand rules and that type of thing. But it would have been nice, I guess, if he, that driver on that evening said, oh, let me call dispatch and find out. So I understand that, you know, for various reasons, you can't let the drivers all make their decisions. I think most of them are capable of it, but it's your business and your decision around that human resource kind of issue. But even if they had said, well, let me try to call and find out, that would have been good, instead of, no, we can't, I can't. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much. And thank you for having the openness to have this meeting and listen to people's complaints and concerns.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, I was going to say, first of all, thank you for sharing that with me. And thank you for the shout out to our drivers, because I do think that we have a lot of really great drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Regarding empowering drivers to make that decision, I would agree that there are probably some old timer drivers that are very experienced and could probably make a great decision. But it's a universally applied policy. There are new drivers that wouldn't be able to make that decision. And we've had high turnover, and we're onboarding a lot of new drivers as well. But ultimately, it comes down to really taking a look at the entire situation. I am hopeful that these inefficiencies that you're reporting and sharing with us will be addressed by any number of means, because we're doing a whole lot right now. And we're hoping to see significant improvements over the course of the next few months. But I would encourage you to report, and you're going to hear me say that often, report that into our team. You could share it with Kat. You could report it in through customer service. But I like to capture specific incidences so we can retrieve the information and really take it apart and analyze what the issues were and if and when it went wrong. And there's always, you know, opportunities to identify opportunities, I guess, for refresher training, to target refresher training for drivers.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Debbie, you're next.
Hello, my name is Debbie, and I experienced a horrible trip yesterday. I'm on the 24th. I was going to a doctor's appointment. They're supposed to pick me up. And this goes with passing by places that are there first. Okay, I was going to 75 Francis Street. This was at 8:10 this morning. Yesterday morning, they picked me up. They picked up another passenger. She got on the ride and she's complaining because you tried to send her a lift. So at this point, I'm thinking she's an add-on. So we proceeded to go, and the driver started going totally the opposite direction of my hospital appointment, which was at 9:15. And it's already 8:30. Okay. He gets down, so the lady, he says, "Oh, something's wrong with this thing, with this GPS." So the lady says, "Well, where are we going? I can tell you because I'm pretty familiar with Boston." He wouldn't answer. So she asked him again. He still wouldn't answer. So he can proceed to go on to Morrissey Boulevard and get on the expressways going downtown. Now my appointment's at 9:15. It's 8:30. There's no way you're going downtown to North Station to Commercial Street and get back to 75 Francis Street at 9:15. Okay, so I'm asking him, where are you going? Where are you going? He's not answering. So I got on the phone and tried to call dispatch because I wasn't getting an answer because you're totally taking me away from my appointment. Okay, by the time we got this person all the way downtown and came all the way back, it was 8:30. Okay, 10 minutes left on my appointment. There's no sense in me being there at this point. Okay, so I'm talking to the lady, and finally 20 minutes later, somebody answers the phone from dispatch or reservations. And I asked to speak to dispatch. Oh, we can't get hold of dispatch because at the point when I started calling, when we were on Columbia Road, he could have pulled over and left me off. I would have took a lift because at this point, I know bumper to bumper traffic going downtown, passing by all these hospitals. It's no way he's going to turn around and get me back on time. Now I waited 3 weeks for this appointment so it could be canceled. Now this goes to passing areas that you're already at. She could have got downtown the same way by going by Sterile Drive from where the hospital was. Why pass the hospital, turn around, and try to go all the way back and make me miss my appointment?
I would say I don't have first of all, I'm sorry. That's awful. That sounds like
That's
an awful
only half of the
experience.
trip. Coming back, the same thing. I was there 4 hours and they were supposed to pick me up at 10:15. Then they're gonna tell me they ain't picking me up till 11:20 after I done missed my appointment. I'm sitting in a hospital for 4 hours.
And it certainly sounds like the driver didn't help by being
No, he
rude.
didn't. But when he got me to my destination, he said, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened." I said, "No, you could have helped me, but you wouldn't answer me. So don't start talking to me at this point because I don't want to talk to you. I'm really frustrated now because I've missed this appointment that I needed."
This does sound like something that we should dig at because it sounds like the driver got lost, didn't behave appropriatly. I would really like to, you said it was a trip yesterday.
He said that his schedule told him to go that way. Okay. And if the schedule told him to go and drop her first, there's something wrong with your scheduling.
This is
the first time it happened to me on one of my appointments.
This is a good opportunity, an example for us to pull. It's something that happened recently. If you share your information, I'd be happy to follow up with you.
I called him. I called for the first half of the trip, and then I had turned around and called him back for the second half of the trip. Because they told me, they called me at the second half of the trip when they were supposed to come back and get me. They called me, my pickup time was 10:45. They called me at 10:36, told me the driver be there shortly. I'm waiting on this driver. So I call in. It took them 20 minutes to answer the phone. When they finally answered the phone, I said, "Where's the driver?" I said, "I'm waiting for my ride." "Are you at 45 Francis?" "Yes, I am." "Well, their driver will be there at 11:20. I said, 11:20. I said, "I've already missed my morning appointment. I've been sitting here all this time, and you telling me my 10:45 is not till 11:20 now?"
Was it a ride vehicle?
He's not really late. I said, "Yes, he is late. Because my pickup time was supposed to be 10:45. He's late. I don't care which way you put it. And you caught me at 10:36 to say he was on his way."
Right. I would really like to take a look at this because it does sound like that there may have been a few things that went wrong with this trip, this experience. And again, I'm sorry. This is Debbie Weathers that I'm speaking to?
Yep. Yep, this is not the first time. I had a surgical appointment, and they always tell me appointments come first. I guess the driver's vehicle had broken down one time, and the driver was taking me to the Faulkner, and he turned around and went to Phil's Corner and picked up this lady and took her all the way to Quincy instead of going to my appointment first. I said, We're helping out the driver." I said, "You helping out the driver, but you messing me up."
Mhm,
And
mhm.
this ain't the first time this has happened to me. And I'm getting really frustrated with these letters I get telling me, "Oh, it's a shared trip." I know this shared trips, but there's got to be some sense to these trips they're making. If somebody's vehicle breaks down, you don't make the other people late because you have to pick them up. I was on schedule before they messed me up.
Debbie, I agree. We can absolutely do better, and I think that these trips can be put together more efficiently. And this one in particular, especially knowing it was yesterday, my team is listening, and we will take a look at this. And I can tell you, even before this discussion, this is something that we're mindful of, recognizing that trips may be packaged together less than efficiently because of same-day changes, but also knowing that still we'd like to do it in a more efficient manner. I think that a lot of this is that manual manipulation by drivers that are trying to adjust, by dispatch that are trying to adjust for the driver shortage, for driver call outs, for drivers that might go home sick in the middle of the day. But again, I'm owning that we have trips where we are seeing that backtracking, and we are looking at it, and we have a number of initiatives underway that we fully expect to improve service.
Debbie, feel free to reach out to me with specific details on these trips too, so we can look into it further.
I called them in. I called them both in because I was just that set up.
I saw that, Debbie. I already have somebody pulling that up for me. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Debbie.
Okay, thank you for listening.
Of course. Peter, you're next.
Hey, good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the drivers that I've had experiences with. They're really great. And I've been using the ride since 1979 full time. So I've only had one or two bad drivers. So I guess I'm lucky. But I also want to get back to what just a little bit, Debbie touched on a little bit about what I've gone through in the past. So I can really feel her frustration and pain. There was a time when I was supposed to go straight home, but because another driver didn't show up, or because the passenger actually missed her ride due to her own fault, they made my driver pick her up. And on top of that, they made the driver take her to where she was going first. So I called up and spoke to a dispatcher at the time. We were able to get in touch with dispatchers. And he explained what was going on, but I said, it's still not right. And when I got home, my PCA, who's a personal care assistant, was supposed to be taking care of me. I missed 19 minutes of my personal care routine because you only get so many hours and you have to use them. And if I scheduled my PCA to be there by 5 o'clock and I'm not there and she's there, that's not her fault. Unfortunately, it was my bad. I was ripping. So I know there seems to me that one of the things that I hope you can do when the driver shortage is better is that if someone misses their ride or they're an add-on to someone else's trip, they should not get the priority over the person who the ride was originally scheduled to be picked up for. Under any circumstance, it's just not fair to that consumer. It's not that passenger's fault that this person had to be added on to the schedule. Everyone deserves a ride, but you also need to balance it because when we book our rides, we're booking them to be at a destination at a certain time. And if you give us an add-on and then have the add-on get dropped off first, and that add-on is maybe going in a separate direction or maybe going past where the passenger's going, it's just not right for the passenger. The other thing, one quick point that I'd like to see happen is for the driver to have a little more autonomy when he sees that he's going past someone's home or drop-off point to pick up someone else, where the driver doesn't have to call dispatch, can just use their own judgment and say, hey, this is where you're going, I'm going to drop you off. Right now, they can't do that. And the reason why drivers don't call dispatchers is they're petrified of them. They have been told not to bother the dispatcher. And when a driver does bother the dispatcher, they can't call them. They're told they have to send a text. That dispatcher, there's a shortage of dispatchers, at least there was when I was there. That dispatcher may get back 20 minutes, 25 minutes later. By then it's too late for the driver to do anything except continue on the course. Because if he deviates from it and he gets a call from a dispatch, he's going to get called into the office and possibly lose his job. So I have a lot of empathy for the drivers. So it's not feasible for passengers or for the MBTA to expect that the driver will reach out to dispatch, because the way it's working now, it's not working. The system's broke. So my suggestion, as I said, drivers are pretty smart and they know what they can and cannot do. And if a driver told me, hey, Peter, I know I'm going past where you're going, but I really don't have time to drop you off. I have to pick up this other person. That's one thing. But most drivers will tell you, they'll look at the schedule, they'll look at the clock. They say, I have time to drop you off, but you know I can't, right? So I'm hoping, Michelle, that that's something that can be addressed in the future.
Okay, Peter. So I was going to say you covered a ton of things, and I was taking notes because I had.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. That's I was trying to hit all the points that you made. So one of them is, we speak to driver shortages, and I can say that we've made some progress there, which is a great thing. But what that also means are a lot of new drivers.
Right.
So in your past, it may have been that your experience was with seasoned veteran drivers familiar with the area. So we're onboarding a lot of new drivers, and we're doing it slowly and efficiently, but they're still learning. So I think to add that to a new driver would be difficult.
And I'm not thinking necessarily of adding it to a new driver, but you could grandfather it in as they gain more experience.
I like the way you think, I really do. I can also tell you, and I shared this a little bit earlier, that we now, I said about maybe 6 months, we've been hosting meetings with dispatch and operations. And the idea is for the drivers and the dispatchers to communicate better about what their concerns are, to encourage them to communicate better, to be more receptive. And we have gotten a lot of positive feedback from both sides. Track staff, you did mention about drivers being frustrated or reluctant to call and potentially waiting for dispatch. I can share with you that Track has had some recent hires, which is a very good thing. And they are also adjusting wages. And that will hopefully attract additional support. And although I keep talking about staffing shortages and those challenges, we do have some other solutions. I mentioned Userve and Curve, but I'd also like to revisit the software that we're looking at and evaluating. New scheduling software, they're offering a lot of opportunities to optimize schedules, not simply the night before, but same day. And what that means is we don't have dispatchers looking at screens and trying to piece together trips to make up for anything that may have impacted day of service, cancellations, no-shows, things like that. So there are software options out there that do offer improved scheduling and more frequent optimization. So those are just a couple of things. Okay. And I don't know if I covered everything,
Yeah, you
but I
pretty
tried
much
to
did.
hit on a few.
Thanks, Peter.
I just wanted to add one quick thing, and that is, I think, you know, passengers have to understand that there are sometimes things beyond dispatch control or tracks control, and that's when a driver calls out sick. And it happened to me, I missed a doctor's appointment because they just couldn't pick me up in time, but the driver that was supposed to pick me up called out sick. So those are things sometimes I think everybody has to understand. In those instances, it is going to screw up your schedule, but you gotta at least understand that those things happen, and not, in those cases, not get so upset. That's all.
Thank you,
Peter,
Peter.
I was gonna say, thank you for commending our drivers. Thank you for having their back and supporting them. And in the perfect world, we would have enough drivers that even someone calling in sick wouldn't impact that day of service.
Right.
And we're hoping, that's what we're striving for. We're hoping to get there.
Right. We're dealing with the situation as it is today. That's why I said that. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks,
Thank you.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing today. We've come to the end of our meeting with perfect timing. If anyone has anything else to share, feel free to reach out to me again with details. I'll be happy to share that information with SWA and the ride. Just a reminder, our next RTAG meeting will be June 29th at 5:30 p.m. And I will send out the topic, the discussion topic in the newsletter. So be sure to look out for that. And I hope that everyone has a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Michelle,
good-
thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great weekend.
You have a good
Yes,
weekend
you
there.
guys
Thanks.
as well.
Yeah.